I'm like, if I'm having a party, I want to participate in the party.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally like, yes, I'm doing it for my friends, but I'm also doing it for myself. Selfishly, I want to be hanging out at the party. I want to be having martini and like, gabbing. So yeah, I think about the menu and I love coming up with a menu, but it's like, what can be done in advance?
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the show. I have the most fun episode for you today, all about throwing summer parties and entertaining with Alexis deBoschnek. Alexis is a cookbook author and food writer. Her work has appeared in Bon Appétit, Tasty, Today Food, The Kitchn, Food 52, you name it. And her next book, called Nights and Weekends, Recipes That Make the Most of Your Time, comes out in August. And we talk about that later in the conversation. So I wanted to have Alexis on a little bit selfishly because while I love having a few people over, like my magic number is 6 people, I don't love throwing parties at all. But I have to tell you, I feel so inspired by this conversation, and I know that you will too. Alexis shares her tips for planning menus in a way that offers simplicity, but most importantly, that brings you joy. We dive into prep tips, menu themes, and Alexis shares menu ideas for different kinds of gatherings, including a summer barbecue, dinner with in-laws, a vegetarian feast, and a 4th of July party. We also get into servingware, cleanup tips, and more. This conversation reminded me that the whole point of why we have people over in the first place is to have fun. You will hear how infectious Alexis's enthusiasm is. I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, but really, we need to meet ourselves where we're at. And there's no right or wrong way to host a party. I think you're going to love this conversation, and I have no doubt you're going to walk away with tangible tips, whether it be in menu planning or prep, that will help bring more joy to your summer gatherings. So this is actually the last episode of season 5. I have loved this season. I hope that you will too. I'm going to take a few months off, as I usually do in the summer, just to regroup, but I will be back in probably late August or early September with a new season. Already have some content for you in the works there. In the meantime, I will still be sending out my Mind, Body, Spirit food newsletter as usual, where you can get weekly recipes, tips, and a whole bunch of more fun things like cooking classes, cook-alongs, and all that good stuff. If you love today's show, please support it in any way you can. This is a community-funded enterprise. Couldn't happen without you guys. So grateful for all of your support. So grateful that you're here. You can support it by liking the show, rate it over on your podcast app. Really makes a huge difference. You can comment on Substack, share it on socials, share it with your friends. All these things go a long way. And most importantly, you can become a paid member. This work couldn't happen without paid subscribers. Just a few bucks a month, you get access to all of the recipes, bonus content, free cooking classes, a whole bunch of fun perks. And I am so grateful for all of you. All right, my friends, let's get into the episode. Well, hi, Alexis. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to chat with you today.
I'm so excited to chat with you too, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to start by asking you the first question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what is your cultural upbringing and how has that influenced your relationship to food?
Oh, that's a fun question. My mom is Dutch and my dad is French, and they met as artists in New York and then moved to the Catskills when I was a toddler. So I have had this kind of, interesting mix of influences in terms of food. I didn't eat processed food growing up. My mom was cooking every single meal. We also I live in my childhood home now. I've kind of done this homecoming, but at the time in the Catskills, like there really weren't places to go eat out. Now there's so many options. But so she was really cooking every night. We had a salad, a very simple green salad after dinner every single night. We didn't really have a lot of, sweets or candy laying around. And yeah, it's just, maybe it sounds a little rigid as I'm telling you this, but it really, influenced the way I eat and think about food today. I'm very much like eating 3 set meals. I'm not a big snacker. I don't eat a ton of sugar. And yeah.
Did you like food as a kid? Like, were you always drawn to it?
I loved food, but I was like a weird kid. I'm an only child. I spent a lot of time alone. I was like, at 7, I was like, my favorite food is kale. Like, I just like love like a ton of sauteed, like garlicky kale. No, it was really, I loved food. And again, my mom was this amazing cook. She's throwing these crazy dinner parties with like, it's for Thanksgiving. She's like carving out mini pumpkins and serving lobster bisque in them. And then also making like ceviche and then making, like a smoked goose. Like she's going over the top, which I think I've inherited some of that. But I loved it from a very early age. And I didn't start cooking until right before college when I kind of panicked and was like, oh, I don't want to be eating the cafeteria food because I'm a brat. I was like, I guess I have to learn how to cook. And, I was like that summer before I was like, you've got to teach me. And, she was like, yeah, you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so I think I went to college, like knowing how to cook like salmon and rice, which is great. And I was like impressing all my friends at 18. They're like, you know how to make salmon? And I was like, yeah. and, it kind of blossomed from there. I also didn't have TV growing up. And so I'm like in the dorm in New York City. We have TV. It's like so exciting. And I'm like watching Food Network for the first time. And I'm like, oh, there's like this whole world. I'm in New York. I have no money, but I'm like seeing all these restaurants and like, getting to try, going to Flushing and like doing like dumpling crawls. And so I'm getting like my palate is expanding and my interest is growing.
When did you decide to make a career out of this?
So I went to FIT, I went to fashion school, and I had a ton of, I think something crazy, like 11 internships for the course of the 4 years. And, they sounded like really glamorous, like working at Net-a-Porter in the closet. And it was like, oh no, what that means is like you're alone in this like warehouse with no windows, folding boxes of like beautiful clothes that you'll never afford to wear. Like, it's like really depressing. And I had an internship at a trend forecasting company, and they were talking about Pantone's color of the year. It was Mango Tango. And they were like, this is groundbreaking. Like, I can't believe like orange could be the color of the year. And I was just sitting there like, oh, no. I can't do this. I can't do this. And I was reading Rachel's Garlic and Sapphires at the time. And, she's talking about this whole other world of food. And I was like, I want to be doing that. Like, I want to be doing that. And then I applied for an internship at Eater and got it. And that was this like real introduction to, chefs and restaurants. It was like, this was in like 2011. And I was like, this is the coolest thing. Fashion who? I'm going to be a food writer. And so I graduated. And then, I got hired at tasting tables, like, truly a miracle that I got hired. I was completely unqualified. And I was an editorial assistant in the test kitchen. And then I went to culinary school like a month into that job. So I was like, I was working in the day and going to school at night. But when I made that decision, like I want to be working in food, I was like, this is why I went to culinary school. I was like, I need credentials to back me up, which is like the best thing I could have done.
I was enrolled in NYU's food studies program, and I had this one conversation with this guy who is like, and it was like 2 weeks before I was supposed to start. This was in 2005. And he's like, well, do you want to like talk about food or do you want to cook food? And I was like, no, I want to cook food. He's like, why the hell are you going to graduate school? And I was like, what? And so that's when I went to culinary school as well. I was like, oh,
that's amazing.
I actually like need the foundation of cooking. I don't need to just think about it.
Wait, did you still do the program?
No, I dropped out.
I have to tell you, I like looked at that curriculum so many times and I was like, I don't think there's any reason for me to go to grad school for this, but it looks and sounds really cool. And I kept being like, if I like happen to like become an heiress overnight and just like have,
exactly.
I was like, maybe this could be a great thing. I was like, was like, this just sounds fun. But like, again, I don't really want to be doing anything with this. I want to be cooking.
I know, exactly. And you're right. Like if I had all the money in the world, like, sure, let's go study.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Oh, and wasn't there like I feel like they had some exchange program as part of it too. I thought there was something there. And I was like,
I feel like this was the first or second year this program was launching. That's how long ago it was. So I'm sure it's come a long way.
Like, 6 years later, I think they had were extending. And I was like, yeah, that sounds, I could go to Italy and like talk about food. Just, please. Sounds great.
I mean, right. That's the dream, right? I could still do that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I'm available.
So, okay, tell me this. I know that you're back in your childhood home, and I want to get into summer cooking and all this stuff, but I have to hear this story about you're in the Catskills. You're just over the river from me. I'm in the Hudson Valley. What brought you back?
So I lived in New York for 7 years, and then I lived in LA for 7 years and met my now husband in LA. And, it was the pandemic, the story so many have told before me. And he's a DP, director of photography. And so he was also out of work. I had gone freelance a year before. We're both out of work and just kind of like hanging out in LA. And everything's really, really shut down there. Like you can't go to the beach, you can't go hiking. So we're just like walking around our neighborhood over and over and over. And it was the summer of 2020 and I shot my first cookbook at home in the Catskills. Wow. I was like, the team can hunker down for 2 weeks in my home and we can just like do it. And I started to kind of see, obviously my mom's telling me all this, like the area is really changing. There's young people here. And I was like, okay. And then I was there and it turned out to be true. It was like pretty incredible to see how much it had changed. And obviously, over the years, I was going back to visit whenever I could, but there did seem to be a real shift. And I think, the few years prior, like I would, sometimes fantasize, felt like, could I ever live there? And I was like, I don't want to be single here because it's not a lot of options. Who am I going to be friends with? And what am I going to do for work? And suddenly, I had a partner. It seemed like there were potential friends. Mm-hmm. One of my best friends is sitting right behind me. We share an office. It was amazing.
That's amazing.
And, and for work, I had gone freelance. I was like, oh, now I can work anywhere. And so I got back from that shoot and there was a heat wave in LA. It was 115 degrees. We lost power for 3 days. And then there was fires. We could see the fire from our house. It was raining ash. And it was like, I think we have to go.
Yeah.
Ryan, my husband, was like, let's just go to the Catskills for like 6 months. We'll just like ride this out. We'll save some money. Just feels like we shouldn't be here right now. And I was like, 6 months. That sounds great. And I really thought we were going to come back. We got here and as soon as we did, it just felt really right. And we started meeting people who were so amazing and like really like-minded and really connected quickly. Yeah. And we didn't intend to stay. We didn't intend to be living with my mother for 4.5 years. But I think by the time we made the decision to stay and then had started looking at some houses, the prices were super inflated. The same story. The prices were super inflated.
Yeah.
And everywhere we looked at just wasn't as nice as my mom's house.
You had. Yeah.
And so we're living there. And, I think as the time has gone, we've expanded it in terms of the farm. My mom has an isolated horse business, which we have now taken over the management of. Mm-hmm. My husband and I have started raising pastured poultry and selling it, which is really exciting. We've grown and expanded the garden. So, now it's not just my childhood home. It really feels like we have made it our home too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, my parents are split up. I'm an only child. All of my mom's family is in the Netherlands. So I'm like, I don't know. It's, it's unconventional in Western culture, but it's really working for us.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. I've seen little snippets of the home that you've posted and it just looks really special. And you're right.
It's
that
really
region is so beautiful. When it comes to food, how lucky are you as a food writer now, especially to be growing and eating all of the food right there?
I mean, I think that was a huge part of it. Obviously in LA and Southern California, you have access to such incredible produce and, so much is grown there. But there is a difference being able to literally step out of your back door. And we have this huge garden. I mean, we can see, where we buy pastured beef. We can literally see it from our hill. It's half a mile down the road. We have a creamery at the other side of the road. You run out of milk, you literally
Yeah.
just go down the road. We're raising chickens. Like, as a cook, getting to like live this life, I just feel so lucky.
Yeah, that's what inspires me. And, in the Hudson Valley, we have a small garden, but even just having access to all of these local pureers, it enriches my life in ways that I wouldn't have foreseen, right?
Totally. And it is, I think this idea of like seasonal cooking, when you live somewhere like the Hudson Valley or the Catskills, right? Like, we are really being guided by the seasons. And it's really beautiful. I think like, obviously summer cooking, summer produce is so exciting. But, I think even like throughout the year, even in February, like, what can we make with all of these root vegetables?
Yeah. Well, it builds up. Like, I talked to this, I've got 2 kids, and it's like bringing joy into the everyday, and those, like, looking forward to the first strawberries from the farmer's market is an experience of such joy. And it's not like we are denying ourselves in winter. And sure, I'll buy packs of strawberries when they're on sale in winter because they're so damn expensive. But it's like there is something really special and just life-giving about moving with the seasons, right?
Totally. It does feel like living here. I feel much more present. I feel like I'm able to, like, there's a lot of, all the outside noise. I feel like it's easier to tune that out here. And like, enjoy that first strawberry, the first raspberry. We have all these currant bushes, which are like I can see that they're going to be dripping with currants. And I'm like, what a gift to be able to just watch it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw actually this morning, sorry, this is so exciting.
Tell me. Yes.
The first little crown of broccoli. But
my God. Well, you must have started them early, yeah?
I planted it in like early April because I was like, the brassicas, they'll be fine. I literally shrieked. I was like, this is the coolest.
It does feel like magic. We just snipped our first bunch of arugula 2 days ago. And it feels like magic every time. I'm like, we grew this. It's so spicy. It's so good. Like, what?
Totally.
Okay.
Such a joy.
Let's get into summer cooking. And I invited you on, actually, specifically to talk about throwing parties, because your girl over here needs some help. Because listen, I'm a super introvert. I love a dinner party of 8. That's my magic number. I love 8.
6 to 8, a perfect amount.
Perfect. But we have more than that amount of friends, luckily.
Yes.
And I just have dreaded hosting parties, and I have seen some of the things you have done. So let's get into this. I want to hear your tactics, what you're making, but let me start with like, how do you plan a summer party as far as the food goes?
My favorite topic, my favorite question. Perfect timing. I'm having 13 people over tomorrow for a barbecue. I'm like, perfect timing. Wait, first, can I just ask, what do you dread about it?
The work. I think it's the work. I think what I dread is like, I'm a food, right? I'm in food all the time. So having to spend so much time prepping food, and then I don't want to be stuck. Like when I have friends over, I like to be with my people. I like to be relaxed. I want to be hanging out.
Same.
So
we're on the same page. I'm like, if I'm having a party, I want to participate in the party.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally like, yes, I'm doing it for my friends, but I'm also doing it for myself. Selfishly, I want to be hanging out at the party. I want to be having martini and like, gabbing. So I think about the menu, and I love coming up with a menu, but it's like, what can be done? Basically, what can be done in advance? Like I am rarely, if ever, making anything while people are there. Like I want basically the entire menu to be done ahead of time. I would say like, okay, this menu tomorrow for 13. I'm doing some barbecue chicken that I've been dry brining for 2 days. And then it will go on the grill when people are there. But I'm like, that's not such a big deal.
Yeah.
It's basically from the fridge to the grill, ready to go. I'm going to do cornbread with some like salted honey butter. So the cornbread I'll make early in the morning tomorrow. I'm going to do like a baked salad with like ranch and cucumbers and stuff. So I'll make the dressing, cut the cucumbers today, assemble, right before, because it's like, romaine. It can like, it can like hold up. I'll probably do some other like simple vegetable, maybe like grilled asparagus, easy, just on the grill. And then like ice cream sundaes. I'm using store-bought ice cream.
Love this. The dessert tip is a big one.
Yes. Store-bought ice cream. I made hot fudge and like poached cherries yesterday. And then I'm just going to set it out and you can do it yourself.
Okay. That's doable.
That's totally doable. And I'm like, to me, that menu sounds so good. Like, I think people sometimes think with hosting that you have to be like going crazy or making like my mom, you have to be smoking a goose. You don't have to do a goose. You can make like, what do people want to eat? You know, sometimes I'm like, they want to eat spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, what can be done? What do people want to eat? And what can be done in advance? So that's how I'm planning the menus. And I am always doing things starting at least 3 days ahead, if not more. Like the day of the dinner or the party, whatever it is, like I want to be doing actually as little as possible.
Yeah. I was just talking to, I had Keanu Moju on.
I used to work with her.
Oh, you're kidding.
I
love that. Well, we were talking about this like idea of prepping stuff when you're in the mood, because there are times when you're going to host a party tomorrow. Like as I mentioned in that episode, what if I wake up? I'm so sensitive about my energy at this stage in my life. I have to say that. And so what if I wake up and I'm just like not in the mood to cook? So that's why like doing stuff ahead, especially when you're like feeling the groove, or sometimes at night I'll put on music and just like kick out a bunch of sauces, kick out. Even my in-laws are coming tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, what can I kick out tonight so that tomorrow after a work day and shuttling the kids around, I can just be present when they get here and chill.
Exactly. And I'm like, there's so many things that can, like, you know, sauces, marinades, cutting vegetables, sauteing onions. Like there's so much that can be done in advance. And then I'm like, okay, let's take it one step further, right? If you want to set up a bar, that can be done in advance. You can set out the corkscrew for the wine in advance so that like when people show up, you don't have to be like, let me find that. Just put it out. Just set it out. The same with like, you know, plates and utensils. I'll set that stuff out maybe 2 days ahead. It also starts like getting me excited for the occasion.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're doing it all in the day,
I can feel that excitement.
Like, you know, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to have all these people over. Like, it's going to be so fun. And like, so I'm setting out the plates. I'm setting everything out. The serving platters. I'm putting a sticky note to say like potato salad in this bowl, grilled chicken over here with the utensils. So that as soon as it's done and ready, into the bowl it goes. It's just taking like all of that guesswork. I'm trying to eliminate the moments of like stress and panic that comes up. That like, you know, we hosted this derby party with 25 people, start at 5. At 4:50, between 4:50 and 5, we had 10 people show up, which I'm also like, don't do that. Don't do that, please.
Who are these people?
I know. I was like, guys. But luckily, like everything was already taken care of. You know, and I'm trying to like just eliminate that rush and that crush of like, how do I just like say hi to everyone and like put the drinks over here and guide them to the table and whatever.
It's so helpful. I want to talk menus because you just mentioned this menu of barbecue chicken, a big ranch salad. You guys don't need recipes for this, for you listeners. Like, you guys can do this. I am confident in you.
Totally.
And you can find on both of our sites, you can find recipes. Yes. Cornbread, ice cream sundaes, just make a sauce and make it special.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Give me another menu.
My in-laws arrived today. So here's what I'm making tonight. I'm making like marinated pork chops, which I did that this morning, first thing, because I was like, I have 5 minutes. Why don't I just do it right now?
Right.
I'm making a strawberry rhubarb pie. I like already rolled out the dough and have the pie crust like in the freezer, but like a crumble topping, like a brown butter crumble topping. Sounds so good. What else am I doing? Casey Elsas came out with a new book recently and it has like a pickled potato salad in it. I'm going to make that. Sounds so good. And then some other vegetable.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah.
I'm like getting a few threads, common threads. Like if you're doing a meat, even for me. So tomorrow my in-laws are coming. I'm going to do reverse marinated chicken breast. But I'm making the reverse marinade today and I'll season the chicken breasts today so they can soak things up. So like get that done ahead of time. And then I think the side dishes, I think there's two things here. The side dishes can be overwhelming, but they don't have to be. Like a big salad, that's not a hard thing to do. You can do this. You can do this.
Yes. Yes. I feel like, okay, potato salad, bean salad. Like all of those things can be made ahead of time. Couscous.
And they get better. Yeah.
And they get better. And I'm like, you could do those a full day in advance.
Yes. Yes. So we had people over for Memorial Day weekend, and my strategy was, because it was a crazy week, was to have people bring the side dishes. And that was actually really fun because we handled the appetizers, the mains, the desserts, but that was a fun thing. I want to get your opinion, though, about a potluck style. Do you like having people bring stuff, or is that like a no-go?
I'm a control freak and very type A, and like the joy for me is having full control.
Okay.
Like, which I probably need to like work out in therapy.
No, but that's your joy, right?
But it's really like, to me, and there's exceptions. Like for my birthday a few weeks ago, it was a really crazy week. And I was like, my friends were like, why don't we do something easy? Come over. We had to like do a bunch of stuff with the chickens. And so like they brought hot dogs, they brought 2 kinds of pie and a salad, and they brought like Negronis and shrimp cocktail. I was like, perfect.
That sounds amazing.
But I would say, typically, like if I'm having you over for dinner, I do want to be in control. That said, I'm also like, that might change. Like I don't have kids yet. Like, I think wherever you're at in life, it's really about getting together, right? It doesn't have to be this idea of this like perfect dinner.
Or like this performance. And what I want to hone in on is, you just said, like, that's my joy. And for everybody, for every host, they're going to have a different joy. So I might have a friend who wants to like make the most elaborate, amazing desserts. I might be that person. I like making desserts, but then I don't want to spend, that takes effort and time. So then, asking other people to participate or to bring other things so that you can do what brings you joy.
Like my joy, I don't like making cocktails. I love drinking them, but like I have basically no interest in making them. And like, one of our friends, incredible, he's an incredible bartender. I'm like, you can make the drinks. Other friends, like, I mean, I'm happy to make snacks, but I'm like, actually the friend who was right behind me, beautiful snack spreads. I'm like, you guys bring snacks. Like, I'm fine with it, but like, it's not bringing me the same joy that it's bringing you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. And for some people too, I will say, like, if your joy is to like not cook, but you still want to have people over, don't stop that. Don't let that stop you from having people over. There's a million ways you can structure this party.
Totally. I'm also like, what people love is like pizza, like getting pizza and like making a salad and like getting like ice cream, like sandwiches, like from the grocery store. I'm like, that sounds so fun.
Okay. So I want to talk about a vegetarian menu. What would you do in that scenario?
So glad you asked. My friend is bringing her parents over next week. So I think it'll be 8 of us. They're vegetarian. So I've already been thinking about this. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go like a Middle Eastern spread.
Oh, yes.
Either some like pita or lavash, and then like a bunch, like maybe a spiced lentil thing. I'm using my hands. I'm trying to like envision this. Yeah. And I'm like, I could do store-bought grape leaves. Fun. Make like hummus, baba ganoush, like maybe some like muhammara, and just have it be like dippy. Maybe there's like a labneh thing, just like dippy, spready, kind of DIY. Maybe like a platter of herbs. Like that sounds so good.
Sounds amazing. And then people can make their own little plate. Oh, that's like my favorite spread. That's probably my go-to spread in the summer, but I'll do like a chicken kebab or some kind of like really, really marinated. But just the Mediterranean spread, because you can do all of that stuff ahead of time. And then you can adapt like whatever's growing in the garden. Like if you have asparagus now, you could toss that with some, I don't know, any one of these spices and maybe over a bed of labneh. And I feel like there's so much variation possible.
Same. I'm like, that sounds so, and that's something that like, even the like most dedicated meat eaters would like love to have.
Yeah.
I'm just like always trying to think too about like, I want to make people happy. I'm like, if you tell me that like chocolate mousse is your favorite dessert, I will like keep track, and like next time you come over, there will be chocolate mousse. But also like I want to be excited about what we're eating. It's like the same. I think in terms of finding that joy, it's like I get really excited about this, but like planning the menu, like weeks in advance, is also really fun for me.
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth because you're like effusing this excitement over this menu. And so it's really about what excites the cook. Because yes, it is fun to make something and to give people the joy of surprising them with a dish they love. And sometimes that's the inspiration we need. But also, like,
Yes.
make food you love to cook and make food you love to eat, right?
Yes. I'm like, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah. We're going to circle back to some menu ideas because I think people are going to be like, wait, what? That's such a good idea. But I want to ask you about utensils. Do you have plates for 35 people when you host a Kentucky Derby party? What's your strategy?
We actually do, but I will like, okay, for 25 people, I'm like, I will use paper plates. I will use paper plates and cute like paper napkins that are like have a gingham print on it. But we do typically I'm like setting the table with real stuff. And also I'm crazy. It doesn't need to be that complicated.
Yeah, it can go both ways. Yeah,
it can go both ways. I get like our friends. Sorry, I keep pointing to be like, oh, this one. But but she and her partner had threw this incredible lobster dinner last year, and that was 14 people, and that was we put newspapers out and paper plates. Everyone got their own lobster, and then there was corn, there were hot dogs, and some people brought sides, and it was so fun. I'm I think sometimes leaning into a theme.
Ooh, that's
tip.
Like
Italian American theme, or we're by the beach, whatever it is. I think that can kind of sometimes add a structure to how you set up the table and can make it more casual.
Well, and even for me, because I think for a lot of my readers, the biggest roadblock is planning the menu. Because for people like you and me, that can be really fun and kind of intuitive. Totally. But for people who maybe don't read recipes all day, that might not be so much. But to plan a theme, like you just said, at the beach, and I instantly was like, oh, my crispy fried, pan fried fish sandwiches, or you just pick a theme, and then the ideas come maybe a little easier.
Totally. Or sometimes it's, there's soft shell crabs in season. And I've been oh, it'd be so fun to do a soft shell crab sandwich, right?
Yeah.
With a crunchy slaw and some like tartar sauce and like a bun. I was like, oh, that'd be really fun.
That'd be
really fun. And then all you would need is like a green salad.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think that people don't. So my green salad is literally I make the dressing in the bottom of the bowl. This is the salad I learned how to make in France. Yeah, in France when I studied abroad. And so people think like a salad has to be a big deal. Like really good greens and like a vinaigrette in the bottom of the bowl. That's all you need to round out basically anything, any meal, any menu.
And I'm like, pro tip, you can make it in the bottom of the bowl. And I do that like in the morning, you know, and then like you can actually just top the greens on top and like wet paper towel on top and it's done. It's like one less thing to think about.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so what about cleanup? Like where do you find your joy in the cleanup? Or do you have any tips to make it easier?
Like I really don't. I really don't. I think if there is a big party, it depends on the party. But like, my friends are really amazing and people will all chip in to help clean up. And that's,
awesome.
But I think like, the biggest gift you can give to yourself is making sure you have like, if you have a dishwasher, making sure that's empty before the dinner.
Yes.
If you have a dish rack, making sure that is also empty. So that like, as the dishes come, you can just stack it up and it's like not such a big deal. Like the prospect of unloading dishwasher after a dinner party is a nightmare.
I think this is a tip that people might not realize is so important. Like even if your dishwasher isn't quite full, like run it on a half load and you're exactly right. Get it empty. And then like I will notice that people will just start loading it. Like people don't even ask if I need help. They'll just start helping out. And that's always so lovely. And it's
totally.
Like, oh, okay.
But if it's full, they're going to panic and be like, I guess I can't do anything.
Totally. Yeah. And I get it.
You're like inviting them to help out this way.
Yeah,
same.
Exactly. We kind of have circled around this as like doing as much as you can beforehand so that you can participate.
Totally.
Are there any other tips that you have for people to like, maybe what's coming to mind is like to ditch perfectionism. I think that has to play into this of like enjoying your own party because it doesn't have to look a certain way or be a certain way. But what are your tips for like enjoying yourself while also, serving, helping, being present for your friends?
I feel like once like people show up, I'm kind of like, here's the food. Like, if it's, if we have a snack spread, I'm like, help yourself. And like, when it's time to say, I'll like, obviously do that. But I'm like, bars here, like, I'm not doing too much of that stuff, because that does take you out of like being present and able to participate. And I'm like, we're all adults here. You can like pour yourself a glass of wine.
Amen. I love that. I think that's like pressure people put on them. Like they have to be constantly catering to people.
Totally. And yeah, I'm like, that just isn't particularly fun to me. I'm like, I've just spent 3 days like preparing this meal. Like, I think my work here is done. I mean, I think there's also, this maybe sounds bad, but I'm like, invite the people you like to hang out with. Like, you don't need to like invite people to your house that you're like not super crazy about and you're going to have this like awkward conversation with them. Like, invite the people you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the number one way to like have fun. I mean, I feel like especially when we moved back here, we were doing some like obligatory dinners with people. You're feeling like small town, we got to do this. One thing my friend group and I that we like to do too is like, we love to play badminton. Someone will come over with like a Frisbee in the summer. Like there's this like, we're kind of like playing together.
Yeah. Okay. That's another tip that you just totally sparked is to like have an activity, right? Because then it breaks the ice and it makes it more interactive and fun, whether that's a sports or a game or like an outdoor activity or something like that.
It just feels like it's a little like less serious,
Yeah.
And it kind of like, it's kind of like disarms everyone to be like, oh, we're just like having fun. I think like we have horses for this derby party. We brought out a horse so that the little kids could like, do a little like pony ride in the yard. And it was like, people were just so, obviously that's like insane. And, most people don't have horses, but I was like, it was such a fun thing. Like the kids were so excited. And like, you obviously, I'm like, it could also be like, a board game or a card game. Like there's so many other ways to like, I think find that joy. That's not like, we're at a dinner party having like a very formal night.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh yeah.
And I think it's also like finding, again, I think there's different parties and gatherings for different moods. Sometimes like in the winter we'll be like, sweatpants like required. We're going to like sit on the floor by the fire in our sweatpants.
I love
like,
it. Yeah.
And some of those more casual nights are like the best nights.
I want to ask you about one more menu because this episode will be airing a few weeks before the 4th of July. Have you started thinking about a 4th of July menu or what would be like your ideal?
Of course I have. We've been throwing the 4th of July party the last few years. And so I'm kind of like, ooh, it'd be fun. I hope we do it again. Okay. So for the derby party, because this is where I did like a big ham and the theme was kind of like, like Southern retro.
Cool.
And I think like there's some overlap, right, with 4th of July in terms of like Southern food. But I was like, maybe there's like a spin on it. And I think last year was like very classic summer barbecue because we have such an excess of chicken right now. I'm like, that's probably going to be the star.
Yeah.
But I'm like, maybe we could make it like a little more, maybe it could be like a Vietnamese, like the chicken is like marinated in like Vietnamese, like spices and sauces. And we just have like a little like Asian flair happening, which might be just like a little different than years past. I haven't totally worked it out, but I was like, okay, maybe there's like summer rolls that like, something like bright and crunchy with, rice noodles and vegetables. Maybe some have shrimp in them. And there's like a peanut sauce. This is happening in real time. There could be like a really big, a big rice salad. I feel like I've been doing a lot of potatoes. I'm like, gotta get away from potatoes. Big rice salad. Maybe, okay, hold on. Maybe there could be like, you're having like lettuce cups and the rice and you could like have shreddable chicken that you're loading up. There could also be a tofu version.
Yes. I love an interactive meal where people are building their own like lettuce wrap or building their own plate. Even that is such a brilliant tip. Okay. So we have a classic 4th of July barbecue. How do you switch it up? It's like, okay, bring in the flavors of like Vietnamese flavors or because you can almost take the same, like you can make a coleslaw, a slaw, but instead of using mayonnaise, use like a fish sauce, chili, lime, vinaigrette. Totally. So you can take the dishes that you're used to making and give them a new slant without it being a totally different menu. I love that.
Maybe some like crunchy peanuts.
Okay, you have to invite me to this dinner. This sounds so
I'm like, please. I'm like, this sounds so good. And I'm like, okay, there could also be like maybe like a mango cheesecake bar. That's like maybe you freeze it and you take it out like 30 minutes before, so it like melts a little. I'm like, okay, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, anything for dessert with mango.
I'm like, I think also, and like I will admit this, I started this series on Instagram, Cooking for Friends, and, I'm documenting not every single dinner, but most of them. And so I am conscious now of like, how often am I repeating myself? I'm like, I gotta stop making shrimp cocktail. I'm making it all the time. But it's also like, it's pushing me to be more creative, I think, which is also really fun. And it's like helping me keep track of like, okay, who did I have for that dinner? Who did what kind of meal did they have last time?
Yeah. When I interviewed Jenny Rosenstock, she has, legendarily, she has a notebook and she keeps track of all of her meals, which I wish I did, but I just haven't gotten there yet. But I do love that idea. Love it.
Same. We've tried it for the last the January 2nd, the last 3 years, and it lasts 2 weeks and then
that's how it is.
But I think what Jenny's done is incredible and so inspiring.
It is. I keep track of my Sunday night suppers, but only about a third of the time. Sunday night in my family is a big deal. And so I do like to then be inspired and look back over past years and be like, oh yeah, that menu was so good. And the kids loved it. But again, it's
totally.
I remember to notate it about a third of the time. So I'm practicing.
Oh, totally. I'm like, it's just one more thing to keep track of.
Yes.
And I just also want to say, I'm like, if people also are more comfortable with the classics, people love hot dogs.
Yes.
You can make I have an annual hot dog party and it's there's a bunch of toppings. There's all the condiment, there's a few toppings and a bunch of hot dogs and maybe you have 2 salads and call it a day.
Done.
That can be really fun too and pretty low lift. It doesn't have, I'm I want to meet people wherever they're at.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like I could talk to you about food all day.
Same.
And I know you have a book coming out. Can you just tell us really quick about your book? And I want to have you back on once the book's out. What is this book about?
Okay, my second cookbook is called Nights and Weekends. It's out August 12th. 2/3 of it is about easy, quick weeknight dinners. And the remaining third is for when you have a little more time, stuff you might make on the weekend. Brunch, snacks, larger format dinners, and desserts. They're not hard recipes. Most people aren't roasting a chicken on a Tuesday, but maybe you would on a Sunday supper. You're most likely not going to make chocolate mousse on a Wednesday, but you might for a dinner party on the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's kind of broken up like that.
I love it. Well, I'll be sure to include a link so people can get their pre-buy-in. And I'm going to end the conversation with the last question I ask all of my guests. And this is going to be a very present moment situation. So in this moment, right now, if it was your last meal on earth, what would it be?
Oysters, ribeye, wedge salad, ice cold dirty martini, and maybe a pavlova.
Okay. That was a no-brainer.
Every time.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you.
And sorry, some fries and mayonnaise.
Oh, please. Yes. I love it. We just did wedge salads last night and my whole family was like, there is just something so magical about a wedge salad.
Sorry, that's it.
Thank you so much. This has been so inspiring. I know that everyone listening is hungry now and I hope feels really expanded to meet themselves where they're at and to find their joy in hosting parties.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Nikki.
Thank you so much for listening. If this work resonates with you in any way, you can support it by leaving a review or comment or sharing it with friends. Also, you can sign up for the newsletter, Mind, Body, Spirit, Food. And by becoming a paid member for just $5 a month, you help fund this entire project. Thank you so much to all of you who are already subscribed, especially to those paid subscribers. This work could not happen without you. I'm Nikki Sizemore, and as always, remember to nourish yourself with intention and love.